U.S. President Joe Biden is throwing his weight behind politically divisive legislation that would allow more federal oversight over elections, saying the stakes are high in the aftermath of the 2020 presidential election. Speaking in Atlanta on Tuesday, he painted the two bills in stark terms.
Will we choose democracy over autocracy, light over shadows, justice over injustice? I know where I stand. I will not yield. I will not flinch. I will defend the right to vote, our democracy against all enemies, foreign and, yes, domestic. And the question is, where will the institution of the United States Senate stand?
In the past year, at least 19 states have passed laws restricting access to voting, according to New York University's Brennan Center for Justice. Biden wants to amend the landmark 1965 Voting Rights Act, arguing that the federal government should rein in states that try to discourage eligible voters by making voting inconvenient, difficult, or confusing. Biden made his argument in Georgia, one of the handful of states where former President Donald Trump claims voter fraud led to his loss in the 2020 presidential election. There's no evidence to back that claim. This debate is urgent, he said, after Trump's election fraud claims triggered a violent attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, as Trump supporters tried to force legislators to stop certifying Biden's win. But, says John Fortier of the American Enterprise Institute, this will be an uphill battle.
It's still a pretty broad-based set of changes that would apply everywhere nationally, that would overrule the states. And there's lots of enthusiasm on the Democratic side, partly because they believe in these issues generally, but partly also with January 6th and other things that are motivating them to think that these changes are what's needed. That being said, there is no support on the Republican side.
Members of Trump's party largely oppose the legislation. They argue that Republicans aren't seeking to block anyone's access to the polls, but rather to protect against voter fraud.
It appears as if the majority leader is hell-bent to try to break the Senate. His argument is that somehow state legislatures across the country are busily at work trying to make it more difficult for people to vote. Of course, that's not happening anywhere in America.
Voting rights activists say they see clear evidence of discrimination in these new voting laws. Some key activists skipped Biden's speech, saying they wanted action from the president, not words.
What we're seeing within the United States is that we're being told that not everyone has the same right to vote, especially young people, especially those who are disabled, especially communities of color, Black people, Latinos, Latinx people, Asian, Native American, Indigenous people. They're being told that your right to vote doesn't matter as much, as well as those who have immigrated to our country and have become naturalized citizens.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has pledged to bring the legislation to the floor for a vote before next week. Anita Powell, VOA News, the White House.